Hey, this is NFL legend, two-time Super Bowl champion Gary Clark. You know what you got to tune into, right? You know what podcast is off the chain.
President Jason Wright, and you're listening to Burgundy Network Podcast.
What is going on, Washington Nation? Welcome to the Burgundy Network Podcast, part of the Believe Podcast Network. This episode is brought to you by BetOnline, which is the fastest and easiest way to place all of your sports bets, regardless of what sport you like to bet on. I don't know about Zach, but I'm a diehard sports betting guy, and BetOnline has all of the news and information we need to make all of our bets, especially with the season kicking off. Now is the time to play because Washington is starting to play now too. So all you have to do is go to BetOnline and make your first deposit, and you get a 50% welcome bonus. That's 50% of free money. Guys, I'm sure everyone here would take some free money. If you put something down, you might as well. That's a lot of easy bets. So head over to BetOnline before Washington kicks off its next game against Baltimore coming up here. We'll see if we can end their weird little 19-game preseason streak, which is pretty unheard of, largest in NFL history. But guys, like I said, head over to BetOnline and start playing today. And as always, I'm your host, Josh Taylor. Joining me, Brian Murphy, Fitzpatrick over there. What's going on, Brian?
Hey, yeah, I'm ready to go. Trying to get the beard into regular season mode. We're 3 weeks away. I can't believe it. I'm ready.
I would hate to see that thing in like week one form. That's gonna be a sight. But guys, another bet is I would bet that our guest here would make a better dessert than anyone that you know. And no, it's not Michael Simon. It is Zach Selby, staff writer for the Washington football team. What's going on, Zach?
It's been going. First of all, yes, my baking is one of the things I will be able to brag on. So absolutely. But yeah, it's been a good weekend. I've enjoyed the last couple of days off, but now we're getting right back into the swing of things, and I cannot wait. The 40 hours is all I needed till I get to recharge my batteries and get ready to go.
He said he is the best baker in the Washington community, and the proof is literally in the pudding. So guys, I can't wait to one day try his cooking at the tailgates. I heard he might have a little cookout going, Zach. Hopefully he can slide by, bring us something. We'll talk about the fit of FedEx later on in the episode too. I want to get your opinions on some of that. But guys, we just beat the Bengals 17-13 in the preseason game. And I don't know about y'all, but I could care less about the score. But there's so much things that we could talk about the game. And first thing first is the first team offense, which seemed to be one of the hot topics this week. Zach, I really wanted your opinion because it seemed like after the game, a lot of fans on Twitter, you know, all of us were always talking about performance regardless of how it is. It seems like a lot of people seem to think that our first team offense might be struggling or coming in slow. Do you get that vibe from the team, like with what you see at practice going into the week 2 of preseason, or is it really kind of what you've expected so far?
I would say no. I don't think it's as bad as everyone says it is. So let's pump the brakes. Remember, this is preseason game number 2 here, so no games count yet. But from what I've seen in practice, they look pretty efficient. I mean, there's been a lot of times where Ryan Fitzpatrick has led the team down the field in practice and looked really good doing it. I think there's a couple of different factors that go into that. Remember, they're not game planning for anything yet, so just don't look into like the plays or anything like that. But I think it had a lot to do with it's the preseason, the first home game. They're a little bit jittery there. They're still kind of working on figuring out how to play off each other. I mean, you have Adam Humphries who knows how to play with Ryan Fitzpatrick, but this is the first time they've both been in this offense. So there's something you consider with that. Damian Brown's still a rookie, so he has some really good plays. Don't expect him to make all kinds of crazy plays just yet. Logan Thomas, saw him have a couple passes that were a little bit too out of his reach. A lot of that goes into, Fitzpatrick's going to take a few shots that maybe he wouldn't have taken because he was a little bit jumpy, a little bit excited to be out there. And who could blame him, honestly? I mean, there was thousands of fans out there. It was so nice to see y'all out there. It really was. And I think that's really what it was. I don't really expect too much out of it. If you notice, once they got settled in, they started to move down the field and they started getting them chunk plays in. So hold on, relax. Don't worry about anything just yet. We will see how good the offense can be once they start getting going in the regular season.
Go ahead, Brian.
I was going to say, sticking with the offense, I think it is a lot of rhythm and all that. And, like you said, they started to do that a little bit. I was kind of surprised that they only played the first quarter. A, what are your thoughts on that? And B, what does this third preseason game look like with it being the last preseason game and then having 2 weeks off? What do they do there? Do they come out for a series? What are you thinking there?
Well, I think with the amount of plays that they had, I don't really consider it that much of a big deal, because usually if you look at the way back when it was 4 preseason games, they would usually have a couple series in the first game, then they would go a quarter to a quarter and a half in the first quarter for the second game, and then for that third game, that's more like with the traditional dress rehearsal, where you'd have them out there for like maybe a half, and then you'd have to give the rest of the backup. So I think that's pretty much on track with the way it's usually gone. And to your point about the rhythm, you have to remember this too. Fitzpatrick threw for 96 yards in 1 quarter. So and for all like the mistakes and everything that they had, they still moved the ball decently well. And who knows what would have happened if they were able to stay out there for a little bit longer, because the offense does take a little bit of rhythm and connection to build up. As far as what they're going to be doing with this game, I would say it's pretty much like what I said earlier. It's the dress rehearsal game, and Rivera said as much. He said that it's going to be they're going to approach it pretty much like as you would a regular game week. They're going to have a game plan. They're going to prep. They're going to see how these guys adjust to those kind of preparations. It's going to give these guys a little bit of feel for what the regular season is going to be like before the 2 week break. So I think that's what they're going to do. I think it's going to be let's see what these guys got. Let's see how much they can handle. Let's see. Put their feet really to the fire here and see who really wants to make the roster, because it's their last best shot really to make their case.
Yeah, and obviously with the first team offense also missing Curtis Samuel, a huge piece.
Yeah.
He passes his physical. He's kind of getting slowly worked back in. Do you think we'll see any of him against the Ravens? Maybe like a drive or so just to get his feet wet back out there in the field against actual competition before week 1? Or do you think Rivera's going to really hold him out until week 1?
I think it's possible. I think he's probably one of the rare exceptions that if you do put him out there, he's probably going to be out there for like a series, because they wanted to get him into individual drills and things like that. But if you look back earlier, I think it was earlier this week when it was raining so hard, they kept him out off the field just because they didn't want to take any chances with him, because they feel pretty strongly about what he can do in the system. Look what he did for the Panthers back when Rivera and Scott Turner were there. He did very well. He's one of the catalysts of that offense. So he knows the system. He knows what he can do. They feel like they can just drop him in there, and he's going to be just fine. That's not the problem. So I could see him playing a series or two, but I wouldn't say much more than that. I think it would more be just to get his feet wet in a game atmosphere, see what that's like, and then if they need to, they just shut him down until the regular season, because that's one of their best players. And then he was brought in to be a number 2 guy, and he's brought in to be a lot more than that actually. So I don't expect them to reveal too much. Plus, you have to consider this too, because they don't want to reveal too much of the offense right now anyway, because they're probably going to do a lot of really interesting, crazy stuff with him. So I don't expect them to reveal too much, and I don't expect him to play that much either.
I want to stick with the receivers. I feel like, after the first preseason game, Steven Sims made a pretty strong case, and it was Antonio Gandy-Golden was gone. Then you come over to the Bengals game, and Antonio Gandy-Golden has, I think, 3 catches or something like that, has the 2-point conversion. How does that shake out? Who is the 5th receiver, 5th, 6th receiver? Is DeAndre Carter on this team as a return specialist? How do you see that shaking out on the wide receiver room?
Well, first of all, I'm going to go ahead and say the longer I've watched the receivers and the longer I've watched camp, I think there is a very strong possibility they keep 7 guys, to me, because you have to consider they have a lot of guys they feel really strongly about. They do not want to get rid of any of these guys, but the fact matters they have to. So they want to keep as many guys as they can. So I think 7 is what we're going to go with. As terms of the 6th or 7th guy on the roster, I think Steven Sims has made a really good case that he deserves to be on there, because he's done literally everything they've ever asked him to do. They want him to be better at catching things downfield. He's done that. They've moved him around on the outside, on the inside, in the slot. He's pretty much done whatever they've asked him to do, and he's done really well doing it too. And he's developed a pretty good connection with Heineke and Ryan Fitzpatrick. So I think he's made a really strong case. In terms of the very last guy, I still think Dax Milne has a good shot to at least make the roster. I know he could be a practice squad guy, sure. I'm sure they want to keep him on there because they like what he's able to do. But it wouldn't surprise me either if he was able to somehow sneak in as that 7th guy because he does a lot of really good things. He rarely ever drops the ball, ever.
Yeah,
he's got some.
I've
really
been saying
strong.
He's one of the better hands, like compared to Steven Sims. And then I thought it was really interesting how they brought him in for punt returns too, both games so far. Is that something you've seen him doing a lot in practice too? Returning kicks. They're trying to say, hey, if we can add this to his resume, we can keep him on the team.
Yeah, he's one of those guys who's back there in the rotation. He's usually been about the same amount of guys ever since day one. Honestly, it's been Danny Johnson, it's been DeAndre Carter, Steven Sims. Daxman, they've all been out there. And now you have to add Jared Patterson into that mix as well on kickoff returns. I mean, I think the 7th guy is probably going to be determined on what else can he do for us. We can't just have you as a guy who catches the ball really well. You gotta be able to contribute on special teams. You gotta be able to catch the ball in punt return and kick return situations. The best guy who can do that probably going to be that 6th or 7th guy.
So speaking of Jared Patterson being the local guy, so far he's been the MVP of preseason. You love to see it. And it's funny how he did go undrafted after what you see him do at Buffalo in college, breaking records. I mean, just running through defenses. Yes, it was at Buffalo, part of the action and everything, but still, like, the numbers he put up are video game type numbers. To see him really come in on 33 touches for 166 yards now and a touchdown, how much has he impressed you, just his presence, his confidence, being an undrafted free agent, not acting like it at all? I mean, he to me, every time I see him, he acts like he's a first-round running back. How impressed have you been with him so far? He's
a hell of a story, first of all, and he's very inspirational because he's a story that you can relate to. I mean, how many guys can say they've been in a situation where nobody's doubted them? Everyone said they couldn't really do it. Everyone said they can't really live up to their own expectations. All of a sudden, he gets an opportunity and he shows himself. I mean, that's every man's story, and it's really cool. But the even better thing about it is that he's not just a cool story now. He's a legitimate threat to make the roster, and he's backing up the story with some really good play. I think he's averaging about 5 yards a carry right now. Well, I don't know. It's not enough. That's wrong stats. You'll have to excuse me. I don't have the top of my head. I don't have nearly a photographic memory yet, but it's pretty
at least
close.
5 yards a touch.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So, but even then, that's really impressive. And he's able to do some kickoff return stuff. Had a 37-yard kickoff return. Then that was something. I
didn't expect that at all.
He's been quick. He's been decisive in his routes. He's been a really good pass catcher. He's done really well at reading his blocks. That's not always something that you see in rookie running backs or even guys who are in their second year, because a lot of times you see guys in college where the hole is already open to them, whereas whenever you get to the line of scrimmage, the hole opens as you're getting to it. So you kind of have to trust your blockers a little bit more. He does that really well, I think. He's been really decisive and very quick once he gets into the hole as well. I think he's been a guy who you kind of wonder if he's a practice squad guy whenever the first week or two of camp. Now it's like, is he the 4th guy on the running back squad? Is he the 3rd guy on the running back squad? We don't really know yet. I think, to me, they kept 4 running backs last year. I think they keep 4 again this year. And not Bryce Love. Gosh, no, not Bryce Love. Jared Patterson. God bless him anyway.
He said Samaje Perine.
Right.
Yeah. No, but Jared Patterson, I think, definitely has the skills to be in that 4th running back discussion.
Yeah, he's inspiring in so many different ways, but especially to us short guys. I mean, that's a win for short guys everywhere. I'm all about it.
Yeah, he reminds me of Maurice Jones-Drew, and I've heard it so many times. But can you imagine, as a defense, you're on a block, and usually you can see the guy's helmet or something. You can't really see much with Jared Patterson coming through. He's just gonna find that hole and then just bust right out and use that acceleration.
Well, you bring up Maurice Jones-Drew, and Coach Rivera brings up that he looks a lot like Darren Sproles, and he has that kind of skill set. I would say that Jared looks a little bit thicker than Darren Sproles is. Maybe that's just because I haven't seen Darren Sproles in a while, but he looks a little bit bigger, looks a little more muscular, more like an MJD kind of guy, a little bowling ball out there who can just roll over anybody.
Yeah.
If he returns kicks and he makes a huge impact, I'm buying a jersey, because being able to do that, those little legs running that fast, it just amazes me every single time. But another feel-good story that's come out from another guy who started out undrafted free agent. I want to say signed with the Dolphins, the Bengals, and then the Chiefs. A guy, as you've talked about a lot on Twitter, is Torrey McTyer. You tweeted out saying that him getting interceptions in practice has just turned into a regular thing. Like every morning you wake up, you just get that tweet and save it to your drafts. And like, I'm just waiting for it to happen. Then you send it out. To me, it's amazing seeing him play. And then I see the confidence they have in him, putting him up against T. Higgins.
Yeah.
Who's one of the top wide receivers for, the young up and coming wide receivers. I'd say he's probably going to be number 2 option for the Bengals if Jamar Chase starts catching balls, but putting McTyer out there like that, and he's still locking dudes down. What have you seen that makes him separate himself from these other guys where he might be able to actually make the team? Because I think it's a possibility. If you get turnovers and you're locking dudes down, it's hard to say no to that.
He's sticky. He's a sticky guy. I mean, he knows how to play good man coverage against wide receivers, against the top wide receiver, and that says a lot for an undrafted guy. He's bounced around the league for a couple of years now. It seems like he's trying to find a home in Washington, and he's done a very good job of being in zone, being in man. And you're right. I mean, interceptions they've started to come very naturally to him, like I've been saying a lot. And it was a big day. It was a big day for the Torrey McTyer fans out there who are really been rooting for him to make the roster for a while now. And I mean, he was out there with the starters whenever Kendall Fuller and William Jackson were unavailable. It was him and Benjamin St-Juste. That says a lot how far he's come, because he was a guy nobody really knew. No, who was Torrey McTyer whenever we were going out to Richmond, but now he's a guy that every Washington fan knows because of how well he's played. There's a lot of people who say he's the 5th corner right now. I mean, he's definitely up there for me. Just because of how well he's playing. I mean, that one play he had against the Patriots where he knocked the ball away in the end zone was really, I think that's really where people start to say, okay, this he's serious now. He's a guy who we should all be putting in maybe in pencil to make the roster.
Yeah.
I'm about to say it's so hard. It's a deep position with the corners.
Yeah.
It's really hard to be able to knock on that final spot. Go ahead, Ryan.
I was going to say, I mean, kind of like the wide receivers, how do you see that shaking out? I mean, I think we know Fuller, Jackson, St-Juste, and probably Moreland, right? I mean, who else are we going? I mean, is he the next guy, or who else do you see shaking out there?
He's probably the next guy, I would say. There's a lot of guys you can go ahead and kind of knock out through process of elimination, right? I mean, like you said, Fuller, St-Juste, Jackson, Moore. I mean, those are the 5 guys, and I think they might keep one more. Darryl Roberts has done a pretty good job, with the options that's available to him. He's a veteran guy. I wouldn't say he's the most experienced guy in terms of just being in the league, but he's definitely up there. And you always want to have more experience on the secondary, especially with how much versatility the secondary is going to have. I think that the ability of what the safeties can do might also affect a little bit of how many cornerbacks they keep, because you have Bob McCain, who played corner and done really well at it. You have a guy like Derek Forrest also has some versatility. You have Cam Curl has played some Buffalo nickel. I think that's gonna really kind of hinge on how much they play off of each other. It wouldn't surprise me if they keep an even amount of maybe five cornerbacks, 5 safety, just because they are all able to do a little bit of the same thing.
Yeah, versatility helps. And I think even with Jared Patterson, Gibson being able to be a 3rd down back where you don't have to rely on Peyton Barber on certain situations, it says, hey, we have that in Antonio Gibson now, who's developing as his running back. Jared Patterson, we have room for you now since we filled in that hole. And I agree with you. Having that versatility and being able to just move guys around, like you said, we've seen a lot of different schemes. I'm curious, do you think – I remember going to the Friday Night Football and saying, all right, it looks like Kendall Fuller, William Jackson III, we're starting, and now it kind of switched where Kendall's on the inside and St-Juste is starting. I think St-Juste starts week 1. Do you think that he walks out first snap of week 1?
I think it's going to depend upon what kind of scheme they have, because a lot of the times, they're in their base set. I forget what the number that Jack Del Rio gave it. It was like 1/3 of the time. Like they're very rarely. And I know, like I think if they're in more of like a nickel or a dime situation, you have St-Juste out there just because he can play on the outside. But I think for now, say Kendall Fuller and William Jackson look to be the starting guys. Now, if they want to bump Fuller into the slot like they do in nickel and dime situations, then you have him on the starting. And it also depends on what the chart is. Not to get too far into week one here, but
Keenan Allen,
Keenan Allen from the slot. I'm thinking, Fuller is on him. That's what I was thinking the whole time we're talking about this.
Yeah, but I mean, either way, it was with the way that offense is vertically driven. You might want to have more DBs out there, so it's possible he could be out there week one. But I think if maybe if we go up against a team that's more of a run dominant scheme, you might not see him out there. You might to be a starter, you might see him out there, coming in certain situations. But I think that's also the case for a lot of these DBs right now. You could have like a day one starting roster, a depth chart out there, but a lot of these guys are going to be like 1A, 1B sort of thing just because of how much starting experience they have.
I was thinking more about the safeties while we're talking here. Bobby McCain, they signed him. I haven't heard a whole lot in camp, which maybe that's a good thing. But also, I know guys have got to play the entire game, preseason. Somebody's got to be out there. I thought Jeremy Reeves was out there pretty late for a guy that was a starter at some point last year. Is his roster spot in jeopardy? It feels like Ron really loves him, but then again, I saw him out there with the back end of the roster at the end of that Cincy game.
Yeah, I would say his roster spot is necessarily in jeopardy, is because I do like the way that he plays. He's a very tough physical guy, and those are two top qualities that Ron Rivera loves in all of his players. So I wouldn't say he's expecting to get the red sticker on his locker just yet, but I think it comes down to it just comes down to the rotation. I think you have like guys like Bob, and Bob McCain has done really well. Just so he's made a couple of interceptions in practice, so it's not like he's a no-show, not like he's a jag or just a guy or anything like that. So it just comes down to the talent that you have at the safety position, because you have Landon Collins, Bob McCain, Cam Curl. I mean, Jeremy Reeves. Like, there's a bunch of talented DBs out there, so somebody's got to end up being at the bottom of the rotation. It just so happened that it was Jeremy Reeves.
Gotcha.
Yeah, people say that about William Jackson III. Like, I haven't heard his name much. That must be that he's playing terrible in practice, or like sometimes that's a good thing. You don't want your name picked on a lot when you're a DB.
Yeah.
And like with the style that he plays with, being that press corner, uptight, like he's just gonna make big physical plays. It's just completely different than how Kendall Fuller plays. So like, I just thought, I'm glad you brought that up, because so many people have been saying that on Twitter too. Like, oh, he's probably going to be one of those guys we regret signing like already. I'm like, no, just wait until the game starts playing. He's going to make huge plays. I think he's going to end up being the fan favorite this year. It's August. It's August 22nd at 8:26 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We play September 12th at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Long time.
Let's just relax on any kind of like busts or anything yet. We haven't even played a game yet, so
it's been a long off season, Zach. You know how this goes. But between the players and the name, we're ready for week one.
Well, and I think also, sticking with the safety spot there, I think Josh and I talked about how Landon Collins was starting to come along, I feel like, right before he got injured. And, it's been a long time since we saw him out there. And so people were ready to write him off. And then, of course, he makes a big play in the preseason game. I'm just kind of reiterating the fact that you can't jump to conclusions too fast, because then you kind of look silly when you do.
Yeah, back-to-back comeback players of the year.
Looked really great, too. Landon's looked like a lot more solid than a lot of people have thought coming off an Achilles injury, because that's almost like not necessarily a death sentence, but it's like you're down for a while, but he's managed to somehow really recover and play beyond expectations.
Absolutely. Love to see it. As you can see, this flag right here. Huge Landon Collins fan. He's been my number one guy even since the draft. Like, when the Giants got him, that was like the worst night of my life. I was like, no, like it could have been worse if he went to Dallas, but still the Giants. I'm like, we need to get him. And sure enough, we did. But one of the things that really bothered us week one that had fans going nuts, and then seemed to be better week two, I'm sure you can guess, Dustin Hopkins in the kicking situation. He goes 3 for 3. They're not the longest ones. It was 2 31s and a 34, I believe. So, Ron reiterated, we're not bringing anyone in. This is our guy. Like, it's, everything's just out of sync. It's the timing. It's the new snapper with Cheeseman and everything. Have you seen improvements in practice and, with what Ron's been telling you, after practice and everything in his presses? Do you feel like we're just sticking through Hopkins because he can make the big kicks, and he's shown that he can make the big kicks? And how do you really feel about that situation after, talking to Ron?
I think it's fine. I think there's really not that much. I wouldn't say there's nothing to see there, but I would say that it's it's the preseason. Everybody's going to overreact to what they see because they think it's a game, so that must mean that if they're bad in the preseason or like they're slipping up in the preseason, that means they're going to slip up for the rest of the year. That's not necessarily true because look, I mean, how long has Cheeseman, Way, and Hopkins worked together now? 4 months.
If that, yeah.
I mean, look, do we expect it to be perfect right now? No. But at the same time, these guys are still getting to know each other. Like, yes, they played a little bit in OTAs, and then they went off and enjoyed a little bit of a summer vacation. And they came back and they're back to practicing. They haven't been practicing very long together. So the system is going to come along. It's not like there's going to be any hiccups or anything like that. It's going to be a process. And look, Cheeseman's a rookie. He was in his first NFL game 2 weeks ago. That's a pretty stressful situation. And if what I see is a guy who, he's had his issues, but he's also succeeded well enough now that he's helped Hawkins make those 3 kicks. And look, Hawkins is a 83.9% kicker for his entire career. It's very uncharacteristic, even last year, for him to kind of slip up that way. So he's had the same kind of strategy ever since they've met each other, him and Rivera. Just let him kick it out, see where it goes, because you don't want to bring somebody else in there right now. Because that's another more competition.
Geez.
Like we're this late in camp, let's just trust the guy who's been your reliable kicker more often than not. And that the last game was the reason why that you show trust in people like that.
Yeah. People treat kickers like quarterbacks. They're like, oh, just keep them until he starts sucking, and then we'll look for our next guy. Like, it's not that easy.
No,
go ahead.
No.
I was gonna say another thing that kind of concerns me. I'm not freaking out about it, but Chase Young and Montez Sweat are as advertised. We've seen that through 2 preseason games. But what kind of worries me is where's the depth? What did they see that made them think they didn't need Ryan Kerrigan back this year? Because I have not seen a whole lot. I've heard Casey Tuhill's name more than I've seen him. We saw WBK make a play or two. Who is that depth pass rusher after the 2 studs starters?
Well, this is actually one of my more favorite discussions to talk about with fans. I mean, for what it's worth, William Bradley King did have a strip sack last week. So let's throw that out there. But I mean, I think William Bradley King and Shaka Toney are fine. I think they're going to be okay. These are guys they thought were going to play immediately whenever they drafted them in the 7th round, which says a lot about their 7th round picks. James Smith Williams also has really come along. He looks like he's going to be this guy slated to be their 3rd edge rusher, and he made a reception in practice a couple weeks ago too, just off a tip pass because they shows how athletic he is. And that was also a 7th round pick. So I mean, even if Shaka Toney and William Bradley King don't put up the crazy kind of numbers you need right now, William Bradley King or not James Smith Williams shows you that if you give these guys time, they're going to develop into it. And to be fair, they are in kind of like a weird situation. Everyone's thinking they're going to replace Ryan Kerrigan, which you can't replace one of the best edge rushers in NFL history. I mean, my God. But you also have to consider that sometimes you don't really need someone who's going to make, 6-7 sacks in a season. Sometimes you need a guy who's just make 4 or 5. Sometimes you need like Shaka Toney who's just going to come in there and put a little bit extra pressure on this. Sometimes you need like a guy like a William Bradley King who's going to make that 1 or 2 strip sacks every 3 or 4 games. That's the kind of depth that you really need. That kind of depth, just because you see it, just you don't see the sack number, doesn't necessarily mean they aren't produced. Kind of like with Chase Young last year. We all know that he's one of the best edge rushers in the league right now, but he only had 7.5 sacks. Well, so what? Pressures really are how you dictate the progress of a defensive end more so than anything else. So don't necessarily at the numbers, just look at how they're able to contribute, what kind of pressures they're able to bring, if they can bring it. If they're the total package, they can do little things well instead of one thing really well. That's what you want to see out of a 7th round rookie right now.
You've eased my fears. I'm good to go.
Like I said, with Chase Young if he gets double teamed, that opens the door for someone else to get those sacks. And I felt like they're pretty evenly spread out And then, of course, Matt Ioannidis coming back too. But I agree with you. I like Shaka Toney and I like William Bradley King. I feel like those are both upgrades from what we had with Ryan Anderson. Hates me to say that, being an Alabama guy, but I saw both of them at the Senior Bowl and both just quick guys. Even Smith Williams had one of the fastest 40 times for edge guy when he was at NC State. So I feel like we're fine. We're building up that depth like we have on the inside with so many guys. So before we let you go, Zach, I have to ask you, what is the one thing you're writing down on your notes that you really want to look for in this last Baltimore game?
The one last thing, I would have to say it's going to be Jamin Davis's development. See how he's doing things, because the first game he got a little bit of flack, I guess you could say, for maybe what he did or did not do by fans. The next game had one of the best tackling grades by PFF. After I think it's like a 40-point increase or something like that, and that's because he watches film, he prepares, he knows how to prepare like a pro. Let's see how much that uptrend goes, because if you look at what we had in the small sample size, we see the base, we see the foundation. He took that to another level against the Bengals. Now we're going to see what he does against the Ravens, and we're depending on where he's at after that, then we can say how good we feel about him being the starting middle linebacker for Week 1, because. Look, this is a lot of information thrown at him. He's a very smart, intelligent guy, but it's still a lot of information thrown at him. And he's taking it very, very well. But again, it's a lot of people even though all first-round picks are expected to play immediately, not everyone is Chase Young. Not everyone is the guy who's going to just change, the franchise the way we look at it. Sometimes guys are they're really good, they're really talented, but they're not finished products yet. They're just rookies. They're rookies who have a lot of talent and potential that are going to grow eventually. And that's what Jamin Davis is. He has a lot of talent. He's going to make a lot of plays this year. Is he going to make some mistakes? Well, hell yeah. He's going to make some mistakes. But the good thing about him, and this is why I have no reservations about him being starting middle linebacker, is he's going to take his mistakes. He's going to have a short memory. He's going to learn from them. And as his linebacker coach said, mistakes are fertilizer. He's going to use those. He's going to grow. It's going to be a nice little tall, developed tree into what's eventually going to hopefully be, multiple Pro Bowl career, maybe a whole couple All-Pro seasons in there. But let's see how he does in the Ravens game. Let's see how he's able to use that experience and turn it into more covered experience, more talent in the run game, more playing faster to fit his gaps. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, middle linebacker is probably the hardest position on defense because you're calling plays, you're making adjustments, you're worrying about the run game, you're in coverage. Like, you are the captain of the whole field on defense, essentially. And he's been calling plays in practice, right? Like, he's a play caller?
Yeah. And another thing to consider is they didn't have to put him in this situation. They didn't have they have guys who have played middle linebacker before. They've had Cole Holcomb. They have John Bostic. Yeah. They have guys who they feel confidently in calling the plays on the defense, but they're giving him this chance because they feel like he can do it. And that alone should give you – look, linebackers and Jack Del Rio, Ron Rivera, they feel like this guy can call the defense in his rookie year. So
huge.
That's Luke Kuechly is on the way.
That's not nothing.
Yeah, I think Ron said it. He was like, I'm not comparing him to Luke Kuechly, but he said, like, we're going to do what we did with him. We're going to give him everything. And because we think he can handle it, and that's a huge amount of praise. And hopefully, you're right that he takes it and runs with it. And just based on what we know about him, I think he absolutely will.
Yep, our Fred Warner is on the way.
Trust Ron. It's not led us astray this far.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Zach, we appreciate you coming on. Let everyone know. I'm sure everyone follows you already, but if they don't, tell everyone where they can follow you and get all your great food takes.
Yeah, you can go follow me on Twitter at Zach Selby WFT. That is where you can find all the Washington football content you can ever hope to get, and a couple of baking pictures along the way. I need to start sending out some recipes because I know a lot of people have started asking for them. So maybe I should ask some food videos too. I'm not on TikTok, but I might have to.
Give it a peek.
It's the old man in me that is stopping it, but I might just have to relent. But you can find more food pictures on Instagram. It's just at Zach Selby. I don't really post on Instagram that much, but whatever's there, it's tasty stuff. So
it all looks good.
Love
So
it.
Zach said it. His fall cookbook is on the way. It's publishing now. So guys, get ready for that and all the great recipes. But Zach, like I said, appreciate you coming on. And guys, we'll see y'all later on this week for a bonus podcast. Don't forget, we're trying to break the streak against the Ravens. Is it going to happen, Zach? Yes?
You know what? It's preseason, week 3. Yeah, let's say it.
Go for it.
Let's break the
Love
streak. Let's go.
Battle of the Beltway. We'll see y'all later on this week.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Zach.
it.
See you guys.